Number one, we gotta touch on the most important point of all of Imperia Part 2, and this is something that's so obscure that it's probably hard to even find people reacting to it. Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and welcome to another top 5 video. I have not done this type of video in a really long time, so if you are into these type of videos, make sure you let me know in the comments and by leaving a like, my man. But without further ado, what we're gonna do today is top 5 mysteries of the spiral, except the difference between this video and the other video I put out like this is that this time it's updated to 2018. So these are what I believe right now are the most burning, the burning questions that are plaguing the wizard's mind in 2018. So we're gonna, we're gonna look at things from the past. We're gonna look at things from that might be, hinted in the future, and we might even see things that I actually don't think a lot of people have talked about. So hopefully, y'all are ready for a really cool video where we go through all the really hidden and mysterious things in Wizard101. One of the mysteries that right away I've been wondering about, honestly, for quite a few updates, is about the world of Wallaru. Now, if you guys don't know what Wallaru is, it's been mentioned multiple times. It was mentioned in a side quest in Polaris by an NPC that they put based on a real character. Then, during the quest line where we had to go into Zafaria, it was before Polaris, basically. It was either before Polaris or maybe it was before Mirage. I think it might have been before Mirage, but basically, in that quest, we actually talked to Jackie Whisperwind, and she thought that we went to Wallaru instead of Zafaria. We actually don't know anything more about it than that. However, we do have some hints as to what to expect from Wallaru. And the reason it's such a mystery is because it's been mentioned enough times where I actually feel like it is going to be a world that we visit. But there is a really important caveat, and it's that, it might not necessarily be a whole world, The only other hint that we have about Wallaru comes from the scholar Xander. Now, we actually know that Xander is from the world of Wallaru, so you could assume that the pictures in his house, basically, in his, I don't know, his dorms, my man's dorms, no, I'm kidding, but, like, in this place, it's probably what Wallaru looks like, and from what I can tell, it looks like it's full of life, full of different biomes. As you guys can see, there's a lot of rocks, there's a lot of trees, there's plains. It seems really Australian. You already know, just by, looking at him, that he's probably Australian. My man's is like, my man's, yo, what's good, car? And he's like, crikey, crikey. I can kind of see him, I don't think he's ever said crikey. But, like, you know what I'm saying, my man's, yeah. The only hint that we've really gotten is from a questionnaire for the new scholars, which is like basically a segment on the Ravenwood Bulletin a few months ago. And basically, what he said in his bio, right, is that his existence began in the savagely beautiful land of Wallaru. So now we don't really know if it's a world. We do know that it's a land, but it is important because we did have a hint about the Weirwood from Wisteria, because one of the competitors in the Wisterian games were from the Weirwood. And for a long time, people actually thought that the Weirwood was a world that we were going to see. But instead, it just ended up being an area in Avalon. So I don't think there's any guarantee that Wallaru is really a world. What it could be instead is, an area, where maybe koalas are from, and it'll probably be like an Australian-themed world. And I definitely think that's something that a lot of people are wondering about, and it's definitely something that we have a lot more questions than answers about. So I'm really excited to see what KingsIsle does with that. But moving on, my mans, let's go to numero dos. Imperia Part 2 ended with a very crazy cutscene. Now, I actually did make another video about this, so I'll try to leave that in the description below. But basically, what we have to fear now, after dealing with the whole Old Cobb and Grandmother Raven situation, is what the Tree of Knowledge calls nothing. And the nothing that she calls that we have to fear is capitalized. So it's definitely a force that we have to see. Now, I'm sure a lot of people expected this to be in, the top 5 mysteries of this year in Wizard101. But what I'm very convinced is that nothing is going to be very interesting as a concept. Because from what I could tell, based on that video that I made earlier, the only thing we really know is from a side quest that says that everything has opposites. And is it really possible for nothing to have an opposite? And it really begs a question of whether, nothing is just the opposite of all magic, And if that really is the case, does that mean we'll have a force that threatens to end all magic in the spiral? it was also very interesting because in that same video, there's a quote in that side quest that was from a book that basically everyone in the book tried to create a utopia by getting rid of absolutely everything. They got rid of skin color so that everyone is gray. They wanted populations to be controlled, so they had a disease that ravaged everybody. So it was really not a utopia, but a dystopia. And it would be really interesting to see if somehow magic was seen as a flaw and it was trying to be ended by a force called nothing. The reason it's so low on the list and not so high is because we actually don't know, we don't know much about it, but we do know a little bit about it. And I know a lot of people are wondering, it's just one side quest. We also know, if you've ever done the side quest in Briskby's Tower, for a while now, there's been something alluded to coming to the spiral. And I'm telling you right now that this, by far, has to be it. Nothing else that we know of could be beyond Grandmother Raven and Grandfather Spider within the spiral. So if it really is a greater threat, it has to be coming out of the spiral. So we do have something that we've had hints about it. There's definitely going to be something coming to the spiral, and it's definitely going to be symbolic of nothing. And I definitely would bet, I would hedge a bet that it's going to be a force against everything that magic stands for. And we have to be a defender of all magic. I think it would be a really interesting plot line. I'm fairly convinced that this is the direction that they're going to go based on just, you know, a lot of their spoilers that they've gone through by going, you know, doing. And also, it seems like this is something, they've wanted something to come to the spiral for literally years. Briskby's Tower is from 2010. They've been hinting at this for 8 years. And I really don't think we've seen anything that's not of the spiral yet. We do know, however, as another thing, when in the quest line in Imperia, and we learned this from Xander, we know that Earth is actually not of the spiral. So it is possible for there to exist something like a planet or a world where you're not from the spiral. So we've actually had quite a bit of mysteries being unraveled. So it's very, very interesting to see where the plot line's gonna go. But we do have hints, and therefore it's only number 4. Let's move on to numero 3. You guys are probably wondering why we're in Marleybone, but this is actually something that happened with the most recent update. There's suddenly a sigil that's gone out here, and normally when there's a sigil that comes out of an area, that normally means that that area is going to become a dungeon of sorts. This happened in the past. It's very, very rare that they would have just inserted a sigil out of nowhere and this wouldn't be a dungeon. So it begs the question, why is the sigil here? Now, no one has really talked about this because I don't think a lot of people know about this. But the last time we had a sigil in Marleybone that we didn't know where it was going, it actually became the Barkingham Palace during the update that brought Darkmoor and a lot of the other really cool side dungeons, like the one in whatchamacallit, the Shangri-La one. I don't know what it's really called, but you know what the one with the yeah, but there's also the Barkingham Palace. There was also the gear, you know, the alternative gear for level 60, the House of Scales, that entire update. All of those updates came in. The last time we had a sigil that appeared like this, that's basically what it was. And in the previous KI Live, they actually hinted that there is going to be a non-Aquila dungeon that's going to be available for a lot of people on a lot of levels. So they're going to probably bring something really, really soon. The other obvious dungeon that we really don't know much about, but we do, you know, a little about, it's probably going to be a side dungeon for drops, is the one in Old Town. The dungeon in Old Town, we don't really know much about, but I've actually made a theory on this one, and I really, really do think, more than anything, that hole geographically, like where it is, it's going really, really below Wizard City into the sewers. And the last time we went below Wizard City, it was to Waterworks. So if it really is a side dungeon like everyone thinks it is, it wouldn't be a huge, huge guess, you know, out of the park that maybe it could just be a continuation of the Waterworks storyline. Again, we know much less about this dungeon than, you know, even what Nothing is or what Wallaru is. We actually don't have any hints on what this is. It's going to be very interesting to see how they could, like, add this. They wouldn't have added this little, you know, the sneak peek with like all the dialogue, you know, the passive dialogue that happens here, unless they're actually going to do something about it. And I think that's a very fairly obvious point. So I definitely think we're going to see a really awesome side dungeon come out. And normally between arcs, that's what they do. Darkmoor came out before Polaris came out. It was right after Chrysalis ended. And right after Dragonspire ended, we got Waterworks. You know, we did get Waterworks right after. We also got Briskby's, which not a lot of people remember. But after the first arc ended, that's what we received. We got a really, really cool dungeon that was really challenging. And at the time, had really good drops. So that's what we know so far about this. I might be completely wrong. It could be part of the main quest going forward, but seeing as it wasn't Imperia Part 2, and it was added as a spoiler before Imperia Part 2, I'm leaning much more heavily towards it being a side dungeon. Numero dos! Now, number 2 is a lot of things. And it's definitely like a more complicated, you know, it's part of the whole top 5. But I feel like the number 1 in this is definitely something that we need to know a lot more about. And, you know, I'm just really excited to see what they do by number 1. But on number 2, I want to know what happened to both the Cabal and the Coven. Now, if you guys don't know the story, the Cabal tried to bring back the First World, and the Coven tried to wake up the Ice Titan to bring back a permafrost. They had very, very similar goals, and we don't really get closure on them. It seemed like we defeated the Coven in the first part of Grizzleheim, but they just came back in Wintertusk. So what's really stopping them, you know? I feel like the only thing that would really stop them is if we got into a fight with the Titan and we ended up winning. Now, we've already fought a Titan now. It wouldn't be really that beyond, you know, it wouldn't be really beyond the scope of the plot for us to fight another Titan since we've already done it. And that being said, it opens the doors to what happened to really, what's going to happen with the Ymir plotline, you know? The Dragon Titan plotline was used in Dragonspire, and the Storm Titan was used in Imperia. We really don't know much about the Ice Titan. He's actually never been awakened. So I think that would be a really, really cool thing. And the Cabal, you know, just like the idea of, like, you know, the First World, we completely thwarted their attempts both in Mirage and in Imperia. It would be very, very interesting to see what the Cabal actually planned on doing. It seemed like a side plot pretty much the entire time, and we also don't know what the door in the Arcanum hiding what the Cabal were doing actually has, you know? We really don't know. It was closed off because the Cabal were working on something, but we still don't know what it is. We just see the Cabal symbol, and we see some protection. This is definitely going to be built upon in the future, but I want to see if the Coven are involved too. I just want to see, like, how do those side plots really manifest, you know? I gotta see my bands. I want to know. Finally, for number 1, we gotta touch on the most important point of all of Imperia Part 2, and this is something that's so obscure that it's probably hard to even find people reacting to it. This was at the very, very end of Imperia Part 1. This was like one of the craziest things that has happened for the Wizard, you know, actually since the beginning. Now, in order to see where Mallory was after she basically all but died, you know, mostly dead, but, you know, somewhat alive was basically the term they used. Basically, to see where she was, we had to travel through an astral plane, and this all happened in this room, in Xander's Life Scholar room. When it did happen, when we were healing Mallory, when we did go through the astral plane, what was really, really striking was that Xander said, people of the Spiral cannot go through the astral plane. But the Wizard is not from the Spiral. The Wizard is from Earth. Now, it was very, very interesting to hear that. And there is going to be more I think I'm going to make on this. But we really still don't know who the Wizard is. We don't know where we are from. We don't know even why we're here. This is the very first time we've actually learned anything about who we are. We actually know that we're not from the Spiral, and we know that we're definitely from Earth. This is something that we knew that we were from a place that magic. That's about it. So it's very, very interesting that 130 levels later, we finally get some insight. But because of all of that, I want to know, where is the Wizard from? Who are the Wizard's parents? What is our purpose? Why is it that we're the chosen one in all of these prophecies? Where did Merle get us? There's so many questions about who we are and why we are suddenly, you know, the scion of Bartleby. Like, why are we meant for such great things? I feel like there's a story behind who we are. And it seems very, very similar to the story of Mallory. When Mallory was born, Grandmother Raven did not want to raise her, and she put her in Polaris, which is the farthest from the rest of the Spiral that she could get. It seems very, very strange that we're from a part of the Spiral that's not even a part of the Spiral, and yet we know magic. Why is that? You know, why does our Wizard know magic? That's a really important question that we need answers on, and I really hope that King's Isle really, you know, builds on this. I feel like our role as the savior of the Spiral is great, but we're not even from the Spiral, and we're from a place that doesn't believe in magic, and yet we know magic. There's so many things that just don't add up. There has to be a story behind who we are, and I think that's the greatest mystery right now in Wizard101, y'all. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Drop a sub if you're new. Let me know what kind of questions you have for me in the comments below. Leave a like if you want me to keep doing these. You know, I feel like these mystery videos are really interesting because it keeps people thinking. I would love to hear theories about all these mysteries in the comments below, so please leave a comment. Helps me out a lot. I do stream daily on Twitch and YouTube, so make sure to follow those. Links are in the description. If somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong, man, so stay awesome, bruh. And yeah,